Laurie Huston's News for the Heart is dedicated to helping you give a voice to your own soul. Our hearts have the power to free us from pain and the struggles that keep us from awakening to our true essence. Join Laurie now as we delve into our heart and soul to find the path that will open us to the possibilities and lead us to the life we love to live.
And good afternoon. This is News for the Heart. Well, we are here to do our New Year's resolution show, the one that we talk about. I mean, it's been a crazy year. So we can maybe talk about intentions and acceptance, because I believe that is the best term for for your audience and mine. I know I did something on faith, and then I had a real test of faith when my website kind of went kaputty. And I thought, oh no, I'm not going to be able to do shows. I'm not going to be able to write anything. What am I going to do? And then I played with it, and well, it happened. But so I have my awesome co-host, Tom Campbell, with me. I'm not sure where that was going. And this is kind of our show where we talk about the new year. I think obviously setting intentions is very important, but I think acceptance of where we are right now and where we're going is probably where we should start.
I think it's a good idea, and when you say acceptance, sometimes people think that means that you just, oh, it's all right, everything's okay, that you just accept everything. Okay, the dog just died and grandma just fell off the porch, and yeah, okay, but it's okay. That it's a kind of a Pollyanna sort of refusing to look at things the way they are, and not being realistic, and the pretending that everything's okay when really that it's not, that kind of a thing. But that's not what we mean by acceptance. When we say you need to accept things, what we're saying, I guess another way to say that captures the meaning of it, is that you need not to be negative about things. That's maybe another way of saying it. By accepting, it means you're not negative. You're not complaining. You're not upset. You're not annoyed. Those are the problem. It's the negative things that are the problem. And if you can just get rid of that negative stuff, then what's left is no longer negative, then it's positive. And that's what we mean by acceptance. That life is the way it is. And very seldom is life going to be the way you want it to be. Sometimes it is. We have little periods we go through where life is maybe just the way we want it to be. But that's not going to be life in general. We live in we live in an environment that has so much stuff going on it all the time. People do things that affect us. Like what we talk about COVID, something happened over in China in, Huang province or something, just about a year ago, something happened over there, and it's affected all of us. It's changed all of our lives. That's the way it is when you are in a society, you're a social situation. Things that your neighbors do affect you. Things that, your politicians do, your city laws, your state laws, your national laws, all of these things, they change, and you have to deal with it. So the thing is that life isn't going to be just the way we want it much of the time, because the things we have to deal with are handed to us by all the other people that are on the planet here with us. Particularly our significant others, our husbands and wives, our children, our in-laws, our outlaws, the people that are close to us make decisions and choices and say things and do things, and then we deal with it. And if every time something happens that isn't the way we want it, we get upset about that. Oh no, That's not right. She shouldn't have said that. They shouldn't have done that. Johnny didn't do his homework. Oh no, and if everything that isn't the way we want it is a problem, something that upsets us, we are going to spend our life constantly upset, constantly annoyed, constantly complaining, and our life will be miserable. So this idea of acceptance isn't one of Pollyanna, and it isn't one of pretending. It's one of not being negative. So you accept that things are the way they are. All right, not my choice. If I was the master of the universe, I would change things. I wouldn't have things just like this. But then when I'd have them my way, I'd probably annoy, another billion people who would be annoyed because it's the way I want it to be, not the way they want it to be. So we all have to just accept that things are the way they are. And that's what I mean by acceptance. Not being upset that things are some way other than the way we want them. So they are just the way they are. And then an extension of that is people are just the way they are. Everybody's on their own path, trying to grow up and learn and become love. And, everyone's challenged by their life, doing the best they can with it. And you need just to let that be okay. People are the way they are. And if so-and-so is always crabby and complaining and you don't like it and it annoys you and now makes you start complaining because now you're complaining about them complaining, it's just, nobody's happy that way. So you just have to accept people, say, well, that's the way they are, and not get negative because of it. So the way we get there is to let people be, let situations be, and stop worrying so much how the people are and how those things are that we have to deal with, and instead focus on how are we going to deal with it. Not that we don't like it, but okay, it is what it is. Now, how are we going to deal with it? And the answer to that is you got to deal with it with positiveness, with a smile. You're not going to get upset or aggravated or annoyed. You're not going to get up in a whip. You're just going to deal with it positively. So that's the whole key here, is to accept things, accept life as it is. Okay. Now, no, that doesn't mean that you don't try to make things better. Of course you try to make things better. But you accept when you run into limitations where you just can't make it better because it's somebody else. To make this better, you're going to have to make them better. Well, you can't make them better. They have to get better on their own. It's their choices and your choices. So you have to try, of course, make things better for everyone, not just for yourself. But you will very quickly run into limitations. Unless you do happen to be the master of the universe, there's going to be a lot of things that you just can't make happen. And you have to come to the conclusion that it's really better that you're not the master of the universe, because if you were, you would probably create as much difficulties and problems than not. So since you're not the master of the universe, then you need to just let the universe be as it is. Learn to deal with it gracefully. So that's the thing. So you mentioned about how your website went down, and oh no, my website's down. Now what am I going to do?
I went through a pity party for a good day and a half, I think, until I went, wait, everything is still there. There's got to be a way I can somehow, and I just played a little bit, and it's not pretty, but coincidentally, ironically, I had already been approved by a university to get it redesigned anyway, and it was going to be this term coming in January. So I figured I'm not going to spend, months trying to get my site back to the way it was, because I know that that's what would happen if I hired my developer, and just wait patiently and know that everything will be okay. I mean, the basics there. It's it's not very pretty. And I can't really share anything right now, but hey, I mean, I can share it if I do it individually. Anyway, but yeah, so a lot of things that the bells and whistles that are usually there, just it's very plain right now, but that's okay.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, that's okay.
It's okay.
I mean, if somebody comes to your website and says, gee, I used to like to watch this, but it's just not pretty anymore. I can't watch it. It's just so unpretty that I'm just going to have to turn it off.
Yep.
Oh, come on, right? Well, if that's the case, those people are not really ready for your website yet. If that's their attitude, if the only way they can stay there is because it meets a certain level of prettiness, and it's not about the content, it's about how dressy it is, well, they're not really ready for your content yet. Those aren't people who are really going to get much out of it. And if they just go on their way, well, there's really nothing lost. So it just works out. And for all the people who really care about your content, they won't care if it's pretty or not. See, because they look forward to getting your next, video and your next thing, and they're going to watch that even if it's, got static and other things. As long as they can hear the words and get the content, they're going to be thrilled with it because they enjoy it. They learn from it. So it doesn't really matter. You see, it all takes care of itself. It is what it is, and it'll get better again, like you say. So it's just an attitude of, oh no, this is not the way I want it to be. You see, and as soon as we say that, when we see ourselves doing that, then it's time to pull back and say, well, wait a minute, what's really important here? Right. And it is what it is. Stuff happens, and sometimes the stuff that happens is not very pretty. Sometimes it's kind of rough stuff that happens, but you just deal with it and go on, and everything works out just fine, because it's really not about you getting what you want. And I heard, I don't know who said it, but a long time ago, somebody said these words to me, and I've remembered them because they seem to be, for the most part, very true. And that is, you will always get what you need and what you deserve. And the reason that the way I interpret that is that we're here to grow up. Yeah. So when hard things happen, they help us grow up. Well, those hard things happen because we need that lesson. And we're at a point in our life where we have earned that lesson. We deserve it. We've earned that lesson. So life is just like that. It teaches us, and we get what we need, and we get what we deserve. So sometimes we deserve to be hit right between the eyes with a large stick. That's what it takes to get our attention. And you can't get our attention any other way than to give us a good sharp crack. Well, that's what we need, and that's what we deserve. That's what we get. The only thing that you look at that's really significant here is that you do learn from those things, so that you don't keep repeating the same old stuff. The only thing that's really, sad is that when you have a lesson and you don't learn it, it goes right in one ear and out the other, and then the next day you're still in the same problem, and the next year you're still in the same problem. That's the shame. Yeah. It's not that the bad stuff happens. That's not the shame. It's whether or not you learn from it. Or the good stuff that happens. It's whether or not you learn from it. That's what's important. We're here to learn, not here to, feel good or go to parties. We're here to learn. So as long as you're learning, then everything that happens to you is a good thing, because it gives you another opportunity to learn. So even those things that are unpleasant, look for that silver lining in that dark cloud, right? And I've never known a dark cloud that didn't have a silver lining in it. You just sometimes have to look for it.
Search really far, deep.
Yeah. Oh, my site just blew up. Terrific. What can I learn from this?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Good. I got a lesson coming.
Yeah. I'm not quite sure I was as enthusiastic as that.
Yeah. Well, it's just a thing to remind ourselves that when things happen that aren't the way we want them, rather than be upset about it, just kind of stand back from it and say, well, okay, this has happened. And by accept it means you just, instead of railing against it, no, why me? Why does this have to happen to me? I've been a good girl. You just accept it and say, well, okay, now, what can I learn from this? Where do we go from here? How does it work? And that way your life is always happy. It's always good. So I guess I started this long soliloquy out by saying, accepting it doesn't mean that you don't care. When I say you need to accept things, doesn't mean, well, I don't care. I don't care about anything.
Yeah.
That's not what I mean at all. It's not that you don't care. You have to care. Caring is very important. It's just that you don't get upset. You don't get negative. You don't dwell on the negative. And it may be that something negative has happened to you. You've just lost your job, or you can't make your rent. Well, these aren't happy things, but you deal with it. You say, well, okay, what can I do?
Right.
What am I going to do about it? Well, maybe we all go down to the rescue mission and we're going to have to, get our meals there for a couple of months until I can work my way back out of it. And that's what everybody has to do. But if you have that positive attitude, then things will work out for you. You'll find that next job. The things will happen. You see, it's when you have that negative attitude where you get angry, and you get angry, then, the whole family's angry and everybody's complaining with each other and blaming each other. And it's, you don't get that job. Things don't work out for you because you're not learning your lesson. You need another whack before you are going to get it. And as long as you need another whack, well, you're going to keep getting whacks, because that's what it's going to take to get you to let go of all that negativity. How much easier is it not to need another whack, just to stay positive in the first place? And now you've optimized your probability of things getting better. Because when you go in for that interview, you'll make a good interview because you'll be happy, you'll have a smile, you have confidence, you'll be fine. And they'll interview you. Somebody comes in and they're the sad sack complaining, oh yeah, this happened and that happened, and oh, woe is me, and my life is so hard. And people don't want to hire you because you're a complainer. So it's just stay happy, and happy things will tend to come your way without you even trying to get them. Stay angry and upset, and miserable things will come your way, even though you're not trying, to get them. So it works either way. So I guess we talk about New Year's resolution, just a resolution to be positive. Take everything that would be, quote unquote, a problem, and turn it into something else other than a problem. Just accept it as it is. It's not a problem. It's just the way things are. You don't have to define, that as a problem. Just learn to deal with it in a positive way. And then it's not a problem anymore. It's just the way things are.
Yeah.
Easy to say, a little harder to do.
Yeah, I mean, our initial responses are where we're at right now. And
yeah,
we have to say, okay, wait a minute. Is this where I want to be right now? Yeah.
Yeah, well, there's no fault in headed off in a wrong direction.
Right.
I mean, we do that, right? That's where we are. Exactly. But we're in also the process of growing and changing. So we catch ourselves heading off in a wrong direction, and we just have to regroup and try again. Look at it a little different. Change our perspective. Which is, I guess, in a way, that's kind of good news, is that if you want to have a happy life, all you need to do is change your perspective. It's the way you look at things, the way you interpret things. this happens and, oh no, why me? Or this happens and you say, well, okay, here's what I'll do about that. We'll get around it. We'll do this and we'll do that. And okay, it's not optimal, but life is hardly ever optimal.
No.
Life is always just what happens, right? There's too many people involved that make your life the way it is. I don't know why your thing particularly crashed, but it probably something outside of your control. It just
WordPress removed a theme. The theme is what creates your website. So when I went on to get a link and all I saw were my background colors, no title, no nothing, my mobile phone worked. So that was cool.
Yeah.
Not everybody is using mobiles yet. Close. It's, pretty high, but yeah, I was like, oh no,
Yeah.
that's not good.
Right. Yeah. Stuff like that just happens all the time. Yeah. Life is just like that. See, there's some people at WordPress decided we don't need this anymore, and they just get rid of it.
Supported.
I mean, they don't look and say, well, how many people have this? And we should write them a letter a month ahead of time and tell them that we're going to take it. Nobody bothers with that. It's just, it's gone. Deal with it.
Yeah.
And life is like that. There's lots and lots of people who can do things that will affect us. And we don't even know those people, and they don't know us.
Right.
But it's just, that's life, particularly when you're one of 7.5 billion people. That's just the way it's going to be. Maybe if you lived on an island by yourself, things would be different. But who wants to live on an island by themselves? That's not a happy life either.
Oh, Angel's made another appearance.
I see that. She's looking for just the right spot to lie down on. She's having a hard time finding it. She says, I think it's right over here.
Maybe this spot.
Yeah, she won't know it till she gets there. Then she'll probably have to go around in a circle 3 times and drop.
Yes.
Just to make sure.
So that is our acceptance. What about intentions? And we do want to make, well, I mean, I'm not sure why we've created this arbitrary number of December 31st, moving into January 1st, we need to make changes for our lives. And somehow, well, as we know, like about 90% of them are not effective.
No, they're not. But, if you have a good intention, and, when we say stay positive, we're talking about, let go of the negative, stay positive. That positiveness is an intention. That creates a positive intention. That positive intention will change the future. That positive intention modifies future probability to be more positive for you. So if we can let go of the negativity, let go of the complaining, let go of the unhappiness because he or she or it isn't what we want, if we can let go of all of that and stay positive, we'll start drawing positive things to us. So I say the person who's positive will get that new job. The person that isn't is not as likely. The probability is lower for them. So if we stay positive, that's a positive intent, and that positive intent creates a positive world for us. So intention kind of comes with being positive. That positive intention just comes with it. Just like being negative, that negative intention comes with it. Why me? That kind of feeling the victim creates negative things in your life that support that viewpoint, that perspective of you, the victim, you, the poor person that has to deal with other people's incompetence and, the stupid, company dropped my theme, stupid company, and then we get upset and angry, then that creates more negative things for us. Then something else happens, like they say, when it rains, it pours, right? And that's because when it rains and you get negative, then that creates more negativity, which creates then more negativity, and you get into a downward cycle. So it's, that positive attitude creates positive intentions, which creates a positive environment to live in. And the only thing you change is your perspective. It's how you interpret what happens. Do you interpret that thing that happens as an awful, terrible thing that now you're going to have to suffer or do without or miss? Or do you interpret it as just another thing for you to adjust to? And the challenge is, how well can you adjust to it? What's the optimum way that you can interpret this or interact with it or meet it, deal with it? What's the optimum way to do that? And that's like a little puzzle you get to solve. And then that becomes a fun thing to do. When stuff happens, it's fun trying to figure out what's the best way to deal with it. So that's, I think, New Year's, we get the idea, well, it's a whole new year, and I'm going to try to do things differently this year. But you can't just do things differently. It's not a matter of doing. It's a matter of being. You have to be different. And that's where everybody fails in their New Year's resolution, because they make a resolution to be different. And they don't change their being. They only change their doing, and only then for a little while, until that wears off, because eventually you will come back to be exactly who you are. The authentic you is inside of there, and it will regain, the major expression in your life would be whoever you really are. And, all that fear and all that ego and all those beliefs, they're going to get back onto the surface after you get tired of pretending that they're not there, of having to pretend that they're not there. So if you start right off and realize that it's not about doing differently or acting differently, it's about being differently. And if you really have that intention to be different, you have to work at it, because that just doesn't happen because you make a wish. That has to take some hard work on your part. You have to catch yourself not being different, catch yourself being negative or being upset or being annoyed. And then you have to stop and say, why am I annoyed? Well, because things aren't the way I want it. And I'm not the master of the universe. So that annoys me. I should be the master of the universe. And realize that, that's just ego. And the ego's there because fear is there. And that does not lead anyplace good. It only leads to more negativity. So to really change your year and be different will take some effort. Not in being a better actor, but in really changing how you interact with the stuff that happens in your life.
It's really interesting to see how your fears, I don't even want to say manifest, but just how they appear in your life. I mean, it's a good indicator of, where your choices are not from a loving place, even when we think they're from a loving place. Even when we say, I want to improve my health, you're not wanting to improve your health from a loving place. You're wanting to improve it, in most cases, from a fear place. So it's interesting how and why we set intentions, because typically most of the intentions we want to set are from that place of, well, I want something different. I'm afraid, or, we're not even noticing so much that it's coming from that place of fear. It's just interesting how we just kind of, things sort of happen. We respond from the place of where we're at. Then we can make a choice of how we want to be. But most of the time we're motivated by that fear instead of.
Mm-hmm. Yes, that is the case for most people. Most of the time, it is their fear that is making their choices. Right? Who we are is just the sum of all the choices that we've ever made. That's who we are. And if we make those choices based on our fear, then we're going to be unhappy people.
Yeah.
We're going to have a lot of pain in our life. We're going to have a lot of upset and anger and anguish in our life. And of course, we'll blame it all on other people because that's our ego. Our ego takes our fear and makes up a story so that we don't have to actually see the fear.
Yeah.
You know, so the ego just blames it on somebody else because taking responsibility for it yourself would be painful, and then you feel like you had to do something about it. Where if you can blame it on somebody else, well, now you're done, right? It's nothing you can do, it's them. So it kind of excuses you from any responsibility. So that's really a neat trick that the ego plays. That's the whole job of the ego, is to whitewash your fear so that you don't even know that it's there. You can point someplace else. But the problem is always outside of you, not inside of you. Whereas in fact, the problem is almost always inside of you, not outside of you. So that ego is a clever little trickster that way. And then we can make up beliefs that tell us that what we're doing is true and correct and right and needs to be done. And then we believe that. So between the beliefs and the ego, we pretend that we're pretty good people. You know, oh yeah, we're almost, you know, we hardly have any fears at all, and we don't have any ego, well, not much anyway, and no beliefs, and we tell ourselves that we're wonderful people. And we just are unfortunate to have to live in a world with a bunch of jerks and, you know, not nice people who keep doing things to us, like crashing our websites and, you know, breathing on us without their mask on, and, you know, other kinds of things. And if we just didn't have those other people, life would be great. But that's really not the case. You know, you got to take responsibility for all your choices, for who you are. And that changes your perspective entirely.
Right.
Yeah, that changes your perspective. It's you are in charge of you. You make your choices, you know, need to be made from what you know is right, not from your fear. So when you make your choices from your fear, they don't work. You know, like you'd make a New Year's resolution, but you make it because of fear. Either a fear of being the same way you were last year when you were unhappy, you know, or the fear that created that fear, you know, because fears create more fears, create more fears. It's just a layered, you know, pile of fear at the bottom of most people's psyches. It's just lots of layers of fear. So we have to accept things the way they are is a good place to start. Every time we feel negative, and negativity even includes things like stress.
Yeah. Because
if you just accept things, and you don't get stressed. Oh, look, the rain's coming through the roof. There must be a hole in my roof and it's leaking. Well, rather than get upset about that or angry, you know, what are you going to do about it? Well, go get a bucket, you know, and put underneath of it. That's the first thing you do about it. The second thing you do about it, if you are a fix-it person, you go up and look at it and see what needs to be done. If not, you call a fix-it person. And if it takes them 2 weeks to get there, well, then you're just going to have to deal with your bucket and your towels and hope that it doesn't rain much or snow much, you know, over those 2 weeks, but deal with it. And in a way that is positive. So you don't get stressed. It's just a piece of life you have to deal with. And it's okay. You know, that is just a change of perspective, nothing else. And isn't that amazing? That people who are miserable and unhappy and full of pain, all they have to do to get rid of all that misery and pain is just change their perspective, the way they see the world, the way they interpret it. That's all they have to change. It's just their own perspective. And it's just that simple, but at the same time, just that hard, because when that is your perspective, it's hard to change it. You have to really put some work into doing that. And if you just do it intellectually, then nothing happens much. It's just all in the intellect and the ego and so on. And all right, you'll try to not eat 3 desserts, at the end of every meal. You'll try not to do this or try not to do that, or try to be nice to your in-laws, or whatever it is that you want to try to be different. But if that's just your intellect telling you that you should be that way,
right,
it won't stick. It'll just go away. After a while, you start being yourself again. The intellect isn't the answer. These are not intellectual problems. These are being problems. These are problems of being, not problems of the intellect. They don't have intellectual solutions. They only have being level solutions. At the intuitive space is where these things are, not in the intellectual space. So most of our New Year's resolutions are intellectual.
Right.
We think we should be different.
Right.
So we make a little story. Oh, we're going to be different this next year. But all that's in the intellect. And that's why mostly it just kind of slides off and disappears, because the real us keeps coming out. That's who's inside, is the real us. And our image, which is the way we try to be, doesn't last very long. You can't live an image. It just wears thin after a bit. And then often you're worse off than you were before you tried to, live an image. So you have to accept yourself. That's where you start. Own it. Say, I am just who I am. All right. And I make a lot of my choices by fear. And I have a lot of stress and a lot of anxiety. And that's just who I am. Now, how can I be different? Well, let's just pick this one thing. Just this one area of my life. I'll pick that and I'll try to be different there. And every time I catch myself going back to the negative, I'll stop, get positive, and go on. And that's how you do it. That's how you start. You get that one little piece straightened out. And that makes it easier to straighten out the next piece. Get that little piece straightened out and work on it one little piece at a time. Because if you work on the whole thing all at once, you'll tend to get overwhelmed, throw up your hands, and say, I just can't do this. So just pick out a little piece. Your relationships with that problem child of yours, that's causing you all that stress and upset and anguish because they just don't seem to get it. Well, look at that relationship and just say, what can I do just about that? How can I be more positive in that? How can I respond and interact positively? Nothing negative, no complaints, no fussing, no whining, no screaming, not issuing orders, not making threats. How can I do it positively? And just work on that one thing until you get it. And that'll make the next thing easier. And it keeps getting easier and easier. And pretty soon you're one of these happy people that almost always has a smile on your face and never really seems to have any problems at all. It's just the change of perspective, just the way you look at things.
I can see where people get confused, though, about the changing your perspective and the Pollyanna thing versus the acceptance. Mm-hmm. Because there's so many people out there that, do the Pollyanna thing where it's not authentic and it's not real and it's just this, you can feel it. Like it's an energy that you can feel. The vibration is just so, oh, my life's great. Really? Really? Okay. Yeah. That's awesome that you've never had any life problems. I think maybe you're in denial, but okay.
Yeah. Well, yes, people try to put on images. I mean, that's the intellect putting on an image, because that's how you're supposed to be. You're supposed to be happy. You're supposed to be good. You're supposed to be this and that. So you just act that way. Right.
And we want everybody to like us. So learn these behaviors.
Exactly. Right. You just act that way. And for that reason, our what do we call it? Our civilization. We're civilized because we learn manners, and we learn manners as children. things to do, things not to do, don't be rude, and so on. So we learn all these, and on the surface, we can all be polite to each other. We can all smile at each other. And if we really have deep disagreements, well, we can just leave those alone, and we can just keep it superficial and make it nice and sweet and easy and stay that way, and convince ourselves that we really are very happy people living a very good life. But a lot of that is image. A lot of that is people being the way they think they should be, not people being the way they are. And often you'll see that when the times get really tough, when things really get rough, the real you tends to come out at that point. That's who you really are. That thin veneer of civilized behavior kind of crumbles and washes away, and we're left with pretty rowdy behavior. So when you have a lot of maybe riot's not the right word, but you have a lot of dysfunction going on in a big city, suddenly you get a lot of looting, right? Because somehow that dysfunction in the city that marches or whatever's going on makes it okay to loot. Whereas last week when that wasn't going on, it wasn't okay to loot. Again, it's that thin veneer of civilization that we act polite. No, we don't steal things. That's not nice, and so on, until we really get in a jam and it's a difficult time and there's chaos all around us. And then suddenly that civilization just disappears. And suddenly people start acting the way they really are, which is very fear-based, very self-centered. What about me? What can I get? What can I grab? And it changes everything. And then those very same people, a month later, they're all being very polite, they're being very nice, and they wouldn't think of stealing anybody's stuff because that wouldn't be nice. It's not that these people are schizophrenic and there's two different people inside there. It's all the same person, but one of them is mostly image coming out of the intellect of being how we think we should be. And the other one is a real person that's living inside, which is a lot more basic usually and a lot more self-centered and a lot more, ego and belief than the person that's in the image. So that's unfortunate, but it's the way we are because we're more focused on behavior than we are on who we are. Yeah. And we think we can get by faking it, by acting our lives rather than actually being and just living our lives as authentic people. But most people make most of their choices because of their fear. Most choices are fear-driven for most people. And it is such a relief and a load off of you when you stop making your choices because of your fear and making them because you are doing what you think is the right thing to do. The best thing for everybody, not just for you, but the best thing to do. It's right. It's the low entropy choice. It's the choice made out of love, made out of caring. And when you make choices like that, because that's just the way you are, then you can't help but be a happy person because you have that happy perspective and you're just not going to find stress. Even in stressful situations, the stress won't stick to you. It just rolls right off. So it's about being. It's not about the intellect creates images. And most people live through their image. Matter of fact, we're so used to living our images that most people don't even know who they are authentically. If you ask the average person, who are you really deep down underneath that image of politeness and other things you've learned? What's underneath? What's under the hood? And most people have no idea. They don't know what's under the hood because mostly they keep that hidden. The ego keeps that hidden from them, and they don't know what's down there until they get in a real tight jam where it's survival time, and then we see what comes out.
Which a lot of people have been in survival mode for almost an entire year.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
No wonder people are getting so frustrated and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's been a difficult year for a lot of people. I mean, everybody's been squeezed and hurt and doing with less income, and I know I have. You know, it's just everybody has been having to tighten up.
Yeah.
But life is like that sometimes. You know, it could be worse.
Definitely.
It could be better. It just is the way it is. So accept it. Yeah, deal with it positively. Then you won't get frustrated and upset and go stir crazy. All of those are things driven by your fear and by the fact that you want things to be different than the way they are. And if things aren't the way you want them, well, that's just intolerable. You have to make them the way you want them.
Wow.
Yeah, that's what the that's what the fear says. That's what the ego says.
That loss of control, that need to be in control somehow of our own lives.
Yes. Yeah, it's a rather amazing thing that when you finally give up controlling your life, because you realize that's impossible. There's too many variables going on. I mean, there's too many things that just happen because of choices that other people have made other places, and they affect us. And when you give up trying to control life, you find that life is perfect just the way it is, and you realize that it's really better without you trying to control any of it. And then you realize that if I could control it, I'd just make it worse. You know, it wouldn't get better. You know, I'd probably make it worse if I could control it.
I don't know that you can convince a lot of people of that, but yes, let's go with that.
Yeah.
We know that. However, I think a lot of people would say, I think I'd like to give it a go for a day.
Yeah. But it is an amazing thing. I remember, I don't know, 30 years ago or 40 years ago, getting to that point where it's like, all right, I quit trying to control it because I know I can't control it. I'm just imagining that I'm controlling. I'm thinking I pretend that I'm controlling it, but I'm not really controlling anything. I can only control myself. You know, I can control my own choices.
Right. That's
really all I can control. So you realize that all the rest of that life going on is really out of your control. And when you realize that, you know, you'd think, say, well, you know, if I were the master of the universe, I'd do this change and I'd make that person like that, and I'd do these other things. And then you realize that really wouldn't have helped. All those things that you wanted to do would just make things worse. Because it's not that you want to change that person so they're more the way they want them, but you need to change yourself so that you can live positively with that person. And if you could just change them, then you'd never grow up. You just live in this little bubble that will always be how you wanted it to be. And your total life would be stale. You'd never grow. You wouldn't change. You'd end up going the other way. Your entropy would increase. You'd start to de-evolve. So that's what I mean when I say you learn that even if you could change it, changing it wouldn't be really what you want to do. You know, it wouldn't be the optimal way. You just have to let everything be just the way it is and learn from it and grow with it and not want to change it or control it. Because if you did, you just make it worse. You wouldn't make it better.
You know, there was a message on one of your forums, and I think it was about this new movie that was coming out. So it was a Disney movie that was coming out on Disney Plus called Soul. And I watched it last night, and it was really fascinating because these new souls, and it was really about a journey of two different souls. One was a jazz musician who just gotten his big break, and then he wasn't looking where he was walking, and he walked into a hole. And so he became a soul. And then he came and met this soul that has been there almost since the beginning. It was soul number 22. And And she was just terrified to come, and she never found what they called a spark. So then there was a bunch of souls that you could see they were, they'd accumulated this big dark mass, and inside is this pure little blue light soul, but this darkness that people kind of, I guess through overwhelm or whatever, they kind of fall into this pity party, and they stay there, and it gets worse and it gets worse and it gets worse. I think I was going with this, which was this spark thing. Everybody thought it was to find your purpose, and really it wasn't about purpose at all. It was about getting excited about living. It was about finding, just getting excited about going down there. And this one little soul just never found that excitement and kept thinking it was about a purpose. And then everybody was making fun, and they'd had all these leaders to try and help them find the spark, which was not about purpose. It was about just really wanting to live. And I think, we get so caught up in what's happening, we forget that spark in us that wants to be, that wants to, live an exciting life, or just live a happy life, a positive life, a life where we're growing and evolving. And I mean, it was a great message of seeing how, you can get caught up and get lost, which we saw these lost souls, but just about how we can, get excited again, be happy, look towards something, and not, choose from that place of fear, which she had been choosing for thousands of years or whatever. But so I just found it interesting because we want to have this huge purpose. We want for when New Year's comes around to, do things differently and but we're missing that magic, that spark that just gives us excitement and happiness in life.
Yeah, well, the key there is that spark is always there, but it's inside.
Right.
See, it's inside, it's not outside.
Right.
And we keep thinking that the world needs to change to make us happy.
Right.
That the happiness comes from the outside. Oh, if you just straighten up, and if the kids would just do their homework, and if, you didn't throw your dirty socks on the floor, and we can go through all these things in our life that are not perfect. And we think if we could just change those, then we would be happy. Life would be fine. But it doesn't work that way. Happiness doesn't come from an optimal arrangement of the outside world. Happiness comes from getting rid of your negativity, getting rid of your self-centeredness, caring about others. That's where that spark. Yeah, it's not a purpose. It's just positive existence. It's being positive.
And the jazz guy, he was convinced that his purpose was jazz. And as he was helping this little soul, this other new soul, he came to realize that it wasn't the jazz. That wasn't what was giving him his spark. He was so confident that it was jazz that was his purpose, and that was what gave him spark. And he'd lost his spark a long time ago. He needed to realize that it's not the purpose that makes us who we are. It's the inside that makes us spark, that makes us want to be better. It makes us want to be happier and more positive.
Yeah. Well, we learn that it's not really about us. Right. It's about other. See, as long as we're self-centered and it's about us, what I want, what I need, then that's based out of the fear of, oh no, I won't get what I need. Oh, I won't get what I want. And that's not good. I want these things. As long as it's self-focused and self-centered, then you're going to be unhappy, miserable, and live a life of pain. But when it's, what can I give? How can I help? How can I be of service? What can I give back?
And that's the problem with purpose, isn't it? Because we're thinking we have this great purpose. And so we're focused on ourselves.
Yes.
Right.
That's a self thing. So it's inside. You don't have to find that outside purpose. The outside purpose is irrelevant. It's the inside. And there your purpose is just to be authentic, and to outgrow your fear, to become love, to make it about other people. And if you never, if you're not self-centered, then you won't fall into self-pity, because self-pity is just, oh, woe is me. How could this happen to me? So that's, we need to get rid of that self-focus. And it's always about us, and always about we get what we need from the outside world, then we'll never get what we need. What we really need is just to be who we are and interact with positiveness and caring to other people. That's the whole key. It's just not about us. It's about other. And then when you think about, well, if I make all these changes in other, wouldn't that be a better place? And you realize, no, it wouldn't be a better place. It wouldn't be a better place. And it's good that you are not the master of the universe. Because if you were a true master, you wouldn't make any changes at all. You just let it be however it is, because everybody gets exactly what they need and what they deserve. So I don't know whether that's a happy thought for people or whether that's an unhappy thought for people, but basically that's true. That you do get what you need and deserve, thinking of yourself as here to learn. And the things that are there are things, if you feel pain, well, that's your feedback to let you know that you need to change yourself. That's your feedback. So that's exactly what you need and what you deserve if you're a student trying to grow and become more. So if we see that, then it kind of changes our perspective on things. Instead of, oh, woe is us, it's, oh, an opportunity. All right, I have some things here I need to fix. And then don't fix them with an intellectual thought of making a better image. Yeah. Fix them from the inside out, not from the outside in. That's the key. Well, I wish everybody a happy new year, and I hope they make, if they make any resolutions, I hope they're resolutions to change themselves rather than to change the outside world, and not to change their image. Not change themselves by changing their image, but to change themselves because they want to be different. But a new year. This was the year of perfect vision, right? 2020. We all had 2020 this year.
Oh, we did.
Perfect vision.
Yeah. Well, good show. All right. So I guess you've been listening to News of the Heart. We begin at the heart of what matters with Tom Campbell, and our perceptions and our intentions. And Happy New Year. Thanks, Tom.
Happy New Year. Everybody, may this next year be a wonderful experience for all of us.
Yes.
I'm sure it will be for me.
Why do I think that that's probably very accurate?
It will be. Every year's a good year for me. I don't think I've ever had a bad year. Right. They're all good years.
All right. Thank you.
Have a question for Laurie and want to be on the next News from the Heart show? Drop us a line via instant feedback at bmajor.org. News from the Heart is brought to you by Intuitive Soul and is produced by Major Radio for Clear Channel's iHeartRadio and bmajor.org.